Jesus said to the lawyer, "Go and do likewise." In 1820, a young Englishman named Frederick Henniker traveled through Egypt and Palestine. He had an adventurous spirit. In Egypt, he climbed to the top of one of the pyramids. And in Palestine, he decided to walk from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, this took courage because the land between Jerusalem and Jericho is a barren wilderness full of enormous hills, steep valleys, and very little vegetation. Since so much of the land looks the same, the road from Jerusalem to Jericho hewed close to a dry riverbed called a wadi, which provided a geographical marker so one would not get lost. Now, given the desolation and challenging geography, and since travelers were confined to walking along the road by the wadi, this area has been rife with robbers for centuries. And on his journey to Jericho in 1820, Frederick Henniker was attacked by robbers. The bandits, as he called them, shot at him with guns, and then one of them attacked him with a sword, slicing his ear and almost cutting it off completely. They stripped off all his clothes and left him naked and bleeding profusely to die on the road. In today's gospel lesson, the unnamed traveler from Jerusalem to Jericho is also attacked by robbers and left half dead. It is only the Samaritan who gives him aid. Since Samaritans and Jews were tribal enemies, the lesson Jesus imparts is not extending mercy to someone in need. When Jesus tells the lawyer, "Go and do likewise," Jesus is telling all of us to extend mercy to our enemies, to love them as we love ourselves. But how can we do this? How is this possible? For in the very location where the parable of the Good Samaritan takes place, today we can see a stark example of the opposite. Dotting the hills of this wilderness land between Jerusalem and Jericho, today you can see tents and ramshackle metal huts. And living in them are Bedouins. The majority are Palestinian refugees, and they try to live as they have for centuries, as semi-nomadic herders of sheep and goats. But the Bedouin are under constant pressure from the Israeli government. They are being displaced, their historic lands are confiscated, their movements are restricted, and they're being forcibly resettled into camps. So in the place where the Good Samaritan showed mercy to his tribal enemy, we witness today Palestinian Bedouins being mistreated, shown no mercy by their tribal enemy, you might say, the Israeli civil administration. But let's not romanticize the Bedouin either. Among the reasons that they give for not wanting to move into these camps is that they don't want to have strangers from other Bedouin tribes living beside them as their neighbors. They fear the violence that will come from all these different tribes living in close proximity to one another. One Bedouin told an interviewer, "If you want us to move into these camps, then you must give us AK-47 rifles." Of course, deadly tribalism is not confined to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or to Bedouin tribes. We can see the same deadly tribalism poisoning our politics. In the public life of this country, instead of showing mercy or even love to our political enemies, we offer them contempt, righteous indignation, and with increasing frequency, violence. So how is it possible to go and do likewise? We don't need to be the victim of a robbery, like Friedrich Hennecker or the unnamed traveler in today's parable, to find ourselves attacked and abandoned. Life can rob us in so many different ways. An unexpected medical diagnosis, the middle of the night phone call telling us about a horrible accident involving a family member, losing a job because of downsizing. Of course, there are the countless ways we are robbed by addiction or mental illness, whether in ourselves or in those we love. And so when we read today's gospel lesson, it is more realistic, I think, more true to life, to see ourselves as the person who has been beaten up and robbed by the circumstances of life. And yet, it is in our weakest and most desperate moments that God comes to meet us. When we are abandoned and left for half dead, without any hope for survival, it is Jesus, who is our Good Samaritan, who comes to save us. Here is how St. Augustine describes it. Robbers left you half dead on the road, but you have been found lying there by the passing and kindly Samaritan. Wine and oil have been poured on you. You have received the sacrament of the only begotten Son. You have been lifted onto his mule. You have believed that Christ became flesh. You have been brought to the inn, and you are now being cured in the church. Near the end of his travel memoir, Friedrich Hennecker writes this remarkable sentence. The Bedouins are generally considered robbers, but I am not willing to think they prove so, as long as they can obtain an honest livelihood by their cattle. For among the people who helped him recover back to health after his brutal attack were a few monks, soldiers, government officials, but also other Bedouin. Hennecker experienced mercy at a desperate moment in his life, and thus he could see the Bedouin not only as bandits who had left him for dead on the road, but maybe as a desperate people who needed a way to earn an honest living, herding their sheep and goats. Hennecker experienced mercy, and so he could extend mercy even to those who had attacked him. And the same is true for us. We can only give what we have. And so to be able to love our enemies as ourselves, we must be so filled with love that after we love our friends and our family, we have enough left over to give to our enemies. And the greatest source of love in this universe is a love that God has shown us in Jesus Christ. That while we were yet sinners, God died for us in Christ. And it is out of this infinite supply of love that we can go and do likewise, that we can love our enemies as ourselves. For we can only be the Good Samaritan to someone else because Jesus was the Good Samaritan to us first.